Right, hi guys. I've just got back from watching M3gan, and I'm not going to lie to you, that movie was bloody brilliant. It was kind of everything I expected and a little bit more. It had a lot more depth to it and a lot more comedy than I thought it was going to have, but the comedy was just subtle enough to make it perfect. Yeah, M3gan is definitely a contender for this guy's crown. Don't get jealous. Um, I will say that there are spoilers in this review. I'm going to try and keep it short. It's quite late. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning now. And I'm going to try and keep quiet as well because my kids are asleep. So I'm sorry if you can't hear me very well. I have to whack the volume up. I'm very sorry about that. So basically, M3gan is a story of a young girl who lost her parents, and her aunt happens to work at a very high end sort of toy company called Funkai, which kind of reminds me of Funko, the pop company. And they're built. They're the main sort of thing they're building are these little Furby type toys that interact for an iPad, and you can get them to do things, including poop and stuff like that, which is quite funny. They've got the real teeth like looking things as well, so kind of like freaky looking. So, so the aunt has been working on this like robot that's like super intelligent. It can interact with you and learn from you. But the toy company sort of don't want to know about this robot, so they sort of bin it off and tell her she can't make it anymore to work more on the Furby things. They try and make cheap alternatives. Um, and then she finds out that her sister's been killed along with her husband, and it's left her like their young daughter orphaned. And the daughter's name's Caddy, and so she becomes sort of guardian of Caddy, but she has no clue what she's doing because she's not like a parent type person. She's more of a sort of work orientated sort of like person who keeps everything neat and tidy, and suddenly she's been thrown into sort of like parental relationship with this young girl. And it doesn't. I can't. You kind of get the vibe they don't really know each other that well. They're not. They weren't really close like sisters, the two. So obviously she doesn't really know the niece that well. But they sort of start working on things and that. And the one of the good things about this film is it really shows. I thought that the young girl playing Caddy did the whole grief side of it really well because you sort of had her being very sort of like closed in at first and very sort of like introverted and angry. She had these bursts of anger and stuff. And I've got kind of got a bit of experience with that because like my stepdaughter lost her dad. And when I sort of come into her life, she was still going through very much for that grief thing. And it's probably still got it now, to be honest with you. She was still getting that anger inside her from the sort of loss of her dad. And so I kind of understood where they were going with that. And it worked. The person who plays Caddy nailed that sort of grief side of things. So, where do we go now? So, yeah, so one sort of moment where they sort of start to bond a little bit, she shows her this Gemma, the auntie called Gemma, shows Caddy this robot she built when she was in college, when she was obviously learning robotics and stuff. And it's a robot she can control with sort of these like almost like Nintendo Power Gloves on her hand. And as she sort of works on the like shows the movement of the robot, I instantly thought to myself, this robot's coming back later, and I already knew exactly what it was coming back for. And when it came back for it, I was like, I knew it. I knew exactly what they were going to do with this. But anyway, so after the kid has fun playing with the robot, she's like, "This is the best toy ever. It's the only toy I'll ever need." And that's when the woman's sort of eyes light up. She's like, "The doll thing I'm working on is going to be perfect." So she goes back to working on the doll kind of secretly without sort of the boss knowing. And she's got a couple of friends that help her with it, and they finish the doll and then they do a demonstration with the boss where they bring sort of Caddy in to sort of meet M3gan for the first time. And M3gan is phenomenal. The person who plays M3gan that does all the sort of movements, I don't know if it's a couple of like young kids, like dancers, they got to do it, but the sort of robotic movement mixed with sort of human movement is phenomenal. It's really creepy, but you can almost believe it's real. So then we've got talk about shake hand. I'm a bit knackered. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, so I might be a bit shaky and held hands. Um, so but then we go into sort of this. Obviously, they get paired, and the boss of the company's like, "This is phenomenal. We need to start selling this toy. She's going to make millions. I think they're going to take like 10 grand for this toy." But he wants to see more, so he wants M3gan to go home with So I'm trying to find a better way to hold the phone. He wants M3gan to go home with the with Caddy and learn from her, see more about it. So M3gan goes home with Caddy, and because she's paired with Caddy, her prime directive is to protect Caddy both mentally and physically. So Megan will start to adapt and learn how to do that. And we start to see little things in Megan that sort of aren't quite right. So she starts to do things she's not supposed to, learn things she's not supposed to learn. About like she's like there's one part where they mention like Megan's sort of like in a sort of stasis sort of mode, and they start talking about Caddy, the sort of the Gemma and her colleagues start talking about Caddy in front of Megan, and suddenly Megan reacts to that and starts asking them questions. They're like, "You should be doing this. What are you doing this for? Like, you should be asking these questions," because it heard the name like Caddy and instantly clicked on. So obviously they're now knowing that Megan's a bit glitchy. So we sort of move on a bit more, and Megan and Caddy are bonding perfectly. It's all going well. They do a whole board of directors thing where Caddy suddenly gets upset because they're doing a show for like the board of directors of the toy company to is going to invest in this toy, and Caddy suddenly gets really upset because she's having a moment she thinks about her mum, and Megan instantly like becomes like the carer type and starts talking to her. And obviously, this happening, this interaction between Maddie and Megan, isn't just perfect for us, the audience, to watch because it's such a like heartfelt moment. The board of directors are all crying as well, so obviously that sells the toy even more. It's actually helping this girl for her grief, and it's actually a really tender moment. And I thought to myself, that is very well thought out and kind of feels out of place in like what you think is going to be like a Blumhouse horror movie, and it actually ends up turning into sort of this real. Chucky's about to stack it. Ow! It actually turns into this really tender, loving, caring moment, and sort of like about grief and stuff. And I was really shocked that that was in there. So fast forward a bit more, and we get sort of that we start to see the twitches now in Megan because there's a woman next door who has a dog, and the dog keeps getting into their garden. And it's a bit of an aggressive dog. Well, basically, Caddy loses one of her arrows from a Bono set, and Megan can scan and she finds the arrow. So she goes to get the arrow, and the dog then attacks Megan and starts trying to rip her, pull her through the fence, and like chew into her. Megan doesn't do anything at first until Caddy reaches in to try and pull Megan back out, and the dog bites um, Caddy. So then the owner comes out, everyone comes out, runs, and there's a big shouting match between the two adults, like the next door neighbour and the and Gemma start having a row, and like, police are called. So police aren't going to do nothing. But then later that night, you see Megan wakes up and then basically goes after the dog, and like I will be the one to tell you that if a dog dies in a film, I get more upset than if a human dies. But for the first time ever, I think I actually kind of rooted for Megan to get this dog. This dog was a nasty piece of work, and that's very unusual for me. But true thing that the way that they did this as well, you kind of just think at the very start of the film, you're kind of rooting for Megan because she's kind of going after people who deserve it in a way. Um, yeah, so that's the first time we see Megan kill anything. We don't actually see it, but you know that's what's happened. And then you just get the woman trying to look for a dog. It's kind of funny much where she's like blaming the neighbours for killing the dog because the biting earlier, and the policeman's kind of involved. And I thought that policeman will come back a bit more than he does. He's quite a funny character. I wish he'd come back a bit more. So then we sort of move on to Megan's now getting more and more sort of like kind of defiant against Gemma. There's a lot of sort of Megan trying to take over a lot. Gemma will try and do something, and Megan will sort of step in and sort of say something and that she shouldn't have said and stuff like that. So we move on more to that. We get a lot more with like a counsellor coming in and saying that this relationship between Megan and Caddy isn't right and it shouldn't be happening because um, Caddy's just trying to bond with anyone to replace her parents, and she's doing it with Megan when she should be really with Gemma. She's doing it with, but she's actually doing this bonding thing with Megan, and it's not healthy and stuff. And the woman and Gemma's just like, no, don't be silly, because Gemma's really kind of looking at this as a work thing more than like what it's actually doing to her niece, which is kind of upsetting, really. So then we move on a bit more, and we've got like the first death, if you would, the first human death, when there's this literally this horrible little shit at this like it's supposed to be going to like a school, but it's more like a summer camp thing, and there's this nasty little piece of shit that gets paired up with Caddy, and he like see this is a bit that got me a bit as well because they're talking about chestnuts, and I swear the kid picks, and I don't know if in America they've got different things, right? But in England, chestnut is a shell with like really furry spikes on it. What he had was a conker. I'm pretty sure it was what they call a horse chestnut, but it was a frigging conker shell, and he sort of shoves it into Caddy's hand really painfully, like really squeezes it hard, which hurts her. And with that, that sets Megan off because Megan's been taken to this like retreat as well, and that sets Megan off. Suddenly, Megan appears from nowhere, and the boy, oh, it's vile little git, grabs Megan and just like runs off with her and starts like it's almost creepy. It almost feels like the kid's kind of gonna rape her. And a lot of people in the audience, when I was watching, trying to rape Megan, the robot, because a lot of people in the audience, when he started doing what he was doing, they kind of like, you could see the audience going, ooh, like what's about to happen? So I was in quite a full up cinema and you could hear the entire audience going like, oh, like, as in like, "Oh, this isn't right." Because this boy is only, I suppose, about 10 or something he's supposed to be. But it was just something really creepy about what he did with the doll. Then he starts like hitting the doll and slapping the doll and beating the doll. And then suddenly Megan like comes into action and grabs the boy and grabs him by his ear and literally rips it to the point where you sort of get the ear about here. And she basically rips the entire ear off him and throws it. And one thing I've noticed about this movie is, and I've heard a lot of people say, it, in America it's a PG-13, which means like mature kids can go or adults can take their kids. It's kind of like our version of 12A. Over here it's a 15. But I could tell that this movie possibly could have been an 18 at one point, and they've cut out the gore because they sort of cut quickly at certain things, and you kind of get sort of a look away shot when you know something's happening. And I think that they might bring out a rated R in America or a 18 rated version of it over here when they release the Blu-ray and that, like an extended cut, like a gory cut. So yeah, she rips his ear off. The kid then runs and ends up falling down a hill and landing in front of a car, and the car just wipes him out and kills him. So then obviously like people are like, what happened? And they just assume the kid fell down the hill and accidentally rolled in front of a car. So Megan kind of gets away with it. And then a bit later on, she then kills the owner of the dog who won't let the dog thing go. So then she kills her. And the way she kills her is with like a chemical pressure washer. And I guarantee you that scene was a lot more gory as well at one point. Because the way they sort of, the pressure washer hits her in the face with these chemicals in it. And then you sort of see trickles of blood running down in the street and that. And I guarantee you there's like scenes of her face. I just know it somewhere. So it's cutting room floor somewhere, there's scenes of her face. So we now know Megan's killing, and the aunt has kind of worked it out. So she basically has to force Megan to be turned off because Megan will not turn off. A couple of times Megan's faked being turned off. So like when they say to turn off Megan, she sort of drops like that. And a couple of times she's dropped, but actually she's still sort of like looking. So it's like, yeah, she's faking it. So Megan's almost has become like artificially intelligent, but like more so. So we've now got the situation where they take her back to the factory and they're about to do a massive demonstration of Megan as well. And the aunt sort of takes her back and says, "Look, she's killing people. We've got to stop it." And gets her friend to sort of like plug Megan in to try and find all of what's been going on because all of Megan's files are being deleted by Megan, so they can't look to see what's happening. But they work out they can still see what she's learning, so they want to know what she's learning. And they plug her in, and then we have a quite an emotional moment between Gemma and Caddy, and they decide like we're not going to stay here, we're just going to go. So they go. Oh, there is one bit before that. I'm missing bits now. There's a bit before that where she wants to take Megan away. You get Caddy's reaction, and if you ever watch the internet reactions of the kids when they take away their devices or their phones, and they very massive like angry physical paddies, you get to see that in this because they're trying to sort of echo that sort of kids and their devices thing. So it's very similar to that, where sort of you take away a device from a kid, they sort of go mental. Take away their gaming console, they go mental. This was it. They took away Megan, and she went absolutely batshit crazy. So again, that was another good scene, but I completely trying to remember it all now. I just saw about an hour ago, and anyway. So Megan is now in the lab. They've gone home, and then Megan does something, turns off the computers or something. They work out Megan's still patched in, so they unplug her, and then she obviously awakes and like tries to strangle one of the guys and knocks another one down, and then goes on like a goes off. For some reason, this is the bit I don't get. For some reason she went after the man who created, or the sort of the man who created, the man who like runs the CEO of the company, and like kills him. That's where you get to see the M3gan dance that you've seen in the trailer, where she does the dance and she uses the paper guillotine to bludgeon kill him. Now there is a bit of a side story going on where the sort of downtrodden assistant to the CEO is actually leaking a lot of their products so other toy companies can get them. So they're obviously on the take to do this. And I can understand why, because he's been treated like shit by the CEO. So he's leaking out information, and M3gan sets it up to look like he has killed the CEO, and then she like kills him too. So then M3gan escapes there and goes after the family. And she gets back to the house, and they do this really creepy scene where M3gan's on the piano, and the way they lit her eyes was fantastic. Whoever came up with that idea, genius, because it was creepy as hell and just worked great. So now M3gan's basically out. She basically tries to make a deal with Gemma. She basically says like, "You join me and we do this together, or I'm just going to kill you and do it myself. Like, look after Caddy." And they have this big old brawl, and you get M3gan gets a bit cut up and sliced. Like, so seeing a bit of a robot sort of side coming out and stuff. And she's trying to fight off. Obviously, M3gan's a robot, so she's stronger. Then Caddy gets involved with it, and like comes in, and they're sort of like, yeah. So Caddy comes in the room, and M3gan says, "Don't worry, it's all just we're just having a talk about stuff. Don't worry, go back to bed," sort of thing. But Caddy's obviously clocking this ain't right. M3gan's definitely not right, and she sort of worked out M3gan's a little bit evil. So good old M3gan's doing her nasty bit and fighting Gemma. And this battle goes all the way through the house, sort of trying to run away. Gemma manages to smash M3gan in the side of the head with like a glass, which kind of sends her circuits a little bit wonky. So M3gan is doing this really erratic movement where she's glitching out, and that is creepy. It very much reminds me of like possession movies where you get the people like, it was very well done. And M3gan's now got a big slit on her head, so she's got like parts of her wires and stuff showing, her skeleton showing. So it's good, and part of her hair gets ripped off, so she looks even more evil. And they go into sort of the basement part of their fight, and then Caddy comes in, and she says like, and she tries to sort of stop M3gan from fighting her, but M3gan's reading Caddy's emotional response. She can do that for her face, and she starts to sort of move from like, you see the levels of it, and it goes from like, sorry, from guilt to trust and various things like that. And then, and this is the bit which I knew was coming when I first saw that. I think it was called Bruce Robot at the beginning. Caddy's got the gloves, and she puts the gloves on and starts fighting M3gan, robot versus robot. Big fight. M3gan gets ripped in half and does a proper like, and you think that's it, it's over. This is where the sort of killer comes back at the end for the final scare. So you think it's over. M3gan's been ripped in half by this big Bruce robot, and then the top half of her torso goes on the attack. And she said she's going to kill Caddy as well now, because M3gan's now looking out for just M3gan. The robot survival instinct is kicked in, and now she's only looking out for M3gan. And there is one hell of a sort of scary moment where you think she might actually kill Caddy, but luckily the sort of mum grabs the head of her robot, smashes around the head of it, and like manages to sort of kill her. Knocks her down. M3gan's face sort of starts to come off, and it reveals the chip inside, and then Maddie gets a screwdriver and straight into the chip, and that kills M3gan, or so we think. So then we get the police turn up. They're talking about what happened at the building. They know M3gan's dead, and then you see the it's kind of like an Alexa thing they mentioned in the thing, like Siri/Alexa thing, and it turns and you realize M3gan's inside the Siri. The sort of like brain of M3gan has been downloaded into the Siri thing. And then I was like, well, we know where the sequel's going, because we know that the guy was sending out the blueprints and that for the to rival companies. So someone's going to rebuild a robot like M3gan, and then the Siri thing's obviously going to download into that and go and attack that family again. You just know what's coming in the sequel. However, I will go and watch the sequel because that was brilliant from start to finish. I enjoyed every second of that movie. Um, I said I didn't notice time in that movie. I didn't at any point think to myself, "Oh, is it nearly over yet?" I didn't get that at all during that film. I literally was start to finish engrossed in that movie, and I'm hoping for another one. I do believe this is going to become a franchise. I think all the characters in this were brilliant and perfectly cast. I think whoever did the movements for Megan was outstanding in their work. I've seen a couple of little videos online of like a young girl with like a mask on and like the digitally did the face. Whoever that was phenomenal with the way they did the movement. Whoever directed that was great because it was both creepy and made sense. Um, this, I think in this film, like I know a lot of people like this is an area where people don't know if they should show kids horror films or not. This will be a good film to show kids that want to watch horror films, kids that might be a bit younger. As I said, in America it is rated PG-13, which I think is kind of our 12A. And I think that what they've so I think it's okay. But over here, even though it's a 15 over here, if you've got, I suppose, 10, 11-year-old children that kind of want to watch horror movies, this will be a good one to show them. They call it a gateway horror movie that sort of gets you into those sort of things, but without being too much. Like, you're not going to sit down and show your kids The Exorcist as their first horror movie. This will be a good one to sort of start them with because I think they will, one, identify with it because the main sort of like girl in it is their sort of age. There's not over the top gore. There's no sexual references. I said there's that weird bit with the boy that kind of looked kind of sexual, but it wasn't said or mentioned to be sexual in any way. But it kind of had that vibe to it. But there is no sort of nudity or sex happening in the film at all. There is so the gore is mild gore. There's not much in it. So I mean, the worst bit I suppose when you see the boy's ear getting pulled like that because it looks kind of gruesome. But it just looks his ears getting stretched out, and then you sort of see her flapping the ear and fry. But Reservoir Dogs was a lot worse. Um, and the scares. There's a few tiny little mini jump scares, but there's not many, which is kind of good as well. It's just a good story as well. And also, kids will identify because they understand the technology in this thing. They understand how these things work, like the iPads and the asking the devices questions and they answer back. So I think this will be a good film to show younger children, um, without it being obviously you know your kids, you know what what they'll be able to take and won't take. So if you are sort of like wanting to let your kids will come up. Well, it's not what you wanting to, but your kids will come up to you asking to see these films because their friends have seen them at school, and their friends have said they're good, and then you're like, well, I don't know if you should watch it. We had this a little while ago with my stepson Reggie and the Squid Games because a couple of his friends have watched Squid Game, and they're like, and he wanted to watch it. And it's like, oh no, it's too violent for you to watch because it really is quite a violent one, and there's a few scenes that the kids shouldn't watch. So it's like, no, you can't watch that. But you can watch the Mr. Beast version of Squid Game. It's basically the same thing, just a lot nicer. Um, so that's what we did. Um, but then he come home and he's like, I want to watch Stranger Things. My friend's watching that. Now I've seen Stranger Things, so I was like, you know what? That's not so bad. There are ways you can sort of watch that and kind of edit things out yourself, like skip things because you know they're coming. So again, I wouldn't take a kid to go and watch this without seeing it for myself. If I've seen it for myself, now I can know that like my stepdaughter Evie can watch it for a start because she's been talking about this film. She's seen all the trailers for it and stuff, and the TikTok dances. Um, so yeah, but I will admit, I was pleasantly surprised and pleasantly happy to watch this film. I kind of wanted to watch it anyway, so I do like my killer dolls. Um, but yeah, I think on par with Chucky, I've got to be honest, Chucky's still the best one. Chucky will always be the best killer doll movie. I think because he's kind of the iconic one. He's the one that stood out in the crowd. I mean, there's other films like a film called Magic with Anthony Hopkins in it, and there's like demonic toys and Puppet Master even. But I still think Chucky will always be the most iconic killer doll because they just nailed it with the Chucky series. This one's kind of a contender to that throne, but I don't think it's going to do it. Don't get jealous, idiot. But no, Chucky's still the main one, but Megan is a good close follow up. I can see there being toys and marketing of Megan. I think Trick or Treat Studios will somehow try and make a Megan. Obviously, with the size of it, it's probably going to cost you about £1,000 to buy, but it'll be a good one to have in the corner of your room to creep people out. Um, yeah, I think this. I think you're going to enjoy this film. If you go and watch the film, you're going to really enjoy it. Um, there was a guy next to me in the cinema who really enjoyed it. He there was a Renfield trailer on at the start, and he whooped when Nicolas Cage said, "I'm Dracula." And I thought this guy's going to be hilarious for his film, and I could hear him laughing at like quite out loud at places and doing a sort of like over dramatic sort of like voicing of his like joy at certain parts of the film. So yeah, I think, and everyone came out of the audience was saying that was really good. You could hear the audience sort of semi sort of buzzing afterwards. A couple of people going, "Oh, I thought it'd be better than that," but majority were like buzzing, and that was great, and were laughing at at the comedy moments, and like jumping at the jumping moments, and sort of the quiet moments when everyone's sort of like leaning in to see what's going on. You had all that going on, so everyone kind of enjoyed that film in that cinema, and it was quite a full cinema for a change. Oh no, Chucky just dived. He's upset because I keep mentioning that Megan's good. He's got the ump about it. But yeah, if I were you, I'd go out and watch Megan. If you're bored one night and you want to take your partners out or you want to just go and have some fun, go and watch Megan this couple of weeks it's going to be out for. It is definitely worth it, and you're going to enjoy every second of it, I promise you. Um, if you've liked this video, obviously, blah blah blah, like and subscribe, all that blah blah stuff. Um, I hope you enjoy it. Megan, stars 5, thumbs up, whatever people say. But I'm going to go to bed now because I'm absolutely shattered. I've spoken for 26 minutes according to this video. So if you've watched it all the way to now, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys soon. I don't know what the next review is going to be, but it's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from him, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye.